Before you plant that native plant that you're seeing everyone recommend, you may want to know this first. While native plants are amazing for your local ecosystem and the wildlife value they provide, not all of them are appropriate for a small suburban yard. That's because in the wild, they are used to roaming free and they do not have borders to where they have to stay. So one little plant can quickly turn into a lot of plants, which can be a lot for a small space. Hi, I'm Brittany from Quarter Acre Roots, where we talk about growing a lot on a little bit of space. I focus a lot on edible landscaping and native plants, and today we are talking about 5 native plants that you may want to research a little bit more before putting them in your smaller suburban yard. Now remember, this definitely does not mean that these are bad plants. These are all amazing plants. In fact, I grow all of them in some way in my yard. It just means that you have to know what you're getting into when you plant them and make a plan for how you're going to manage them. Okay, first up on our list, we have mountain mint. I have one large mountain mint here, and I have it a couple other places around my yard because although it is an aggressive spreader, I find that it is a little bit easier to maintain and that the benefits of this one definitely outweigh any drawbacks of its aggressiveness. I love this one because it has a really lovely mint scent, almost like a cooling mint scent. And although its flowers are really understated, pollinators absolutely love them. So this is definitely going to be a pollinator magnet plant for your garden. Mountain mint does have those traditional square mint stems that help you recognize plants in the mint family, but don't worry about this one being invasive or anything. This is a native plant to much of the United States, definitely including where we are in Maryland Zone 7A. And it's more of like a cousin to the more traditional culinary mints that you may be thinking of, like spearmint and peppermint. Those are part of the mentha genus in the mint family, and mountain mint is part of a totally different genus in the mint family. So people tend to freak out when I say plant mountain mint. It's amazing, but it's not the same as planting like a spearmint or a peppermint. Mountain mint is going to spread more slowly through underground rhizomes, whereas mints are going to spread through those vicious runners that just run everywhere and pop up a million bajillion plants, and it's very, very hard to get rid of. So mountain mint is definitely a great alternative if you want that minty smell and you want to be able to use cuttings for like arrangements and the leaves for teas and things without having to put a spearmint or a peppermint in the ground. I also put a mountain mint up in this like kind of awkward corner here because when we converted all of this grass to gardens, we couldn't dig very deep just because of how the concrete for the sidewalk extends underground. So I figured putting a mountain mint would be something that would be hardy enough and aggressive enough to just kind of fill out this whole little corner, and you can see it is definitely doing its job filling things out. Once it kind of encroaches over here on this sedum, I may move the sedum, but until then, I am really happy with how it's filling up this space. Here's a closer look at another mountain mint I have in my yard. It has not bloomed yet, so there really aren't many bees on it yet. The cat mint next to it is completely covered in bees because they love those blooms. But once this one blooms, it will definitely start to attract lots of lovely pollinators. It is about as tall as it's going to get here, and you can see that it's throwing out all of this new shorter growth at the base of the plant to spread. So what I like to do with a lot of my perennials is to Chelsea chop them, meaning come in like around June timeframe and cut down to here. But I find that the stems on mountain mint are sturdy enough to keep the plant upright when it starts blooming. So I typically do not Chelsea chop the plant unless it's getting in the way of something else. Okay, next up, another plant that is definitely going to be too aggressive for smaller spaces is a passionflower vine. Passiflora incarnata, I believe is what it's called. Keep in mind that there are some annual versions of this vine. So when you are getting a passionflower vine, there are some that will not survive the winter. It just depends what kind you get. My mom has grown that kind before. The flowers look slightly different, so your best bet is to get it from a nursery where you know exactly what you're getting. I got my first passionflower vine from someone locally who could tell me that it was the extremely vigorous native kind, which is what I wanted. But I'm gonna tell you guys a story about a mistake I made with my passionflower vine in my smaller yard so that you do not make the same mistake. Now, I love my passionflower vine. It is so beautiful. The flowers just blow me away. It's such a vigorous vine and grower that it looks really beautiful every year. It comes to life a little bit later. You can see it sprouting up right here from the mulch. And then I'm also standing on another area. I just stepped on this, but you can see all of these little buds popping up here. Now, the reason why I'm showing you guys this is because I'm standing in a path right now. I don't want a passionflower vine growing here. And the reason why there's a passionflower vine growing here right now is because when I first got mine, I threw it in the ground right here because I thought to myself, well, I've got a concrete pad here, so that will help contain its spread, and I'll train it up this pole right here and eventually put an arbor on top. Now, I only had it in the ground for a little bit before I decided, no, that was an impulsive and unwise decision. So I dug it up and I moved it to where I'll show you guys where I have it now. But what ended up happening is I missed a couple little root fragments. Now, the way Passionflower Vine works is if you leave even a little bit of those root fragments in the ground, it is going to sprout because the vine is going to sprout new plants all along the roots. So I'm going to dig these up because these are leftovers from last year. And mind you, these are not the first leftovers that have popped up. I think I've dug up probably maybe 6 leftovers from this area so far and just given to other people or just composted. And I'll show you why they can be such menaces. So I grabbed my hoary knife, which is one of my favorite tools for digging up little plants. And I kind of wish I wouldn't have stepped on all of these because now it's not entirely obvious exactly how far this root goes. But what I'm just gonna do is stick the hoary knife, the knife part down in, and gently pry it up to kind of look for where that root is. And I think I just saw, I just saw a bit of it. And you know what? I think I accidentally cut that root, meaning that I'm probably gonna get another sprout here. But I wanna give you guys an idea of how this is gonna grow when you put it in the ground. So you can think long and hard about exactly where you wanna put it and if you wanna put it in your yard. See, I'm just tearing the plant up because it can be really hard to pick up. So as I am digging this out, I just got this tiny little root fragment, so I'm going to carefully set that over there. Here's another little sprout that popped off of the root. There's just tons of them in here. So the vine will throw out these long runners, and then all along the runner, new plants will sprout from that, and they will sprout to the surface of the soil and start growing their own lovely vines. Oh, this is going to be a fantastic example to show you guys. Oh, I got this big long root here. Look at this. Okay, so this is one root that I accidentally left in the ground. And keep in mind, this is probably about 5 feet from where I had the plant planted. And I did not have it in the ground for that long. And it was a tiny baby when I planted it. So right now, if we look on this long root, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 maybe, and that's not counting the ones that I knocked off. So I can easily just chop up this root, throw these in little pots, and grow new passion flowers. But that shows you exactly how aggressive of a vine this is. Now, if that's something you're looking for, go forth and prosper, my friends. This is a vine that is going to take over different places and give you, oh, I think we found another root here, give you a very prolifically spreading plant. So I have one more little area here to dig up. I'll show you guys, and then I'll show you how I would pot these up, and then we'll move on to the next plant. All right, here is one more little guy that I dug up, and again, I knocked off a bunch of little plants that were sprouting from this long root runner. And you know what? I'm sure I didn't get everything, but I'll just have to deal with them as they pop up and chalk it up to a learning experience. Okay, now those root pieces that I dug up and showed you guys, what I did when I dug those up before is I just chopped them up into little root pieces and I potted them up separately. So what they end up doing is sprouting these gorgeous, healthy maypop vines. I took one root and I cut it up into 3 different pieces and I potted it into 3 pots. I did that with a couple different roots that I dug up. And if you look closely in this one, you can even see this is the main plant that's sprouting. But just in this little pot, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 more little sprouts popping up. I'll show you guys where I moved our Passionflower Vine to hopefully have it a little bit more under control, so it doesn't drive me crazy popping up everywhere in all of my mulched paths the next year, because it is a plant I love and that I want to keep. So here is where we ended up planting our Passionflower Vine. Right now, it is roaring back to life, looking very beautiful. There are a couple little areas where I'm seeing some sprouts pop up as well. And then right here, I have a set of 3 trellises for it to climb all over. Now, these actually didn't come together. This one in the middle, I can't actually remember where it was from. It might be Walmart. But then the 2 little ones that look like they were made to go with it are actually from Aldi, and they were super cheap, which is really exciting because it definitely needed more than this area to climb on. So adding the 2 other little ones is a perfect fit. And the reason why I moved it to this space is because one side over here, we have concrete stairs. We have our like utility landscaped area over here. We have the concrete driveway. We have the brick house, and we have a sidewalk over here. Is this plant capable of running under driveways, running under sidewalks? Yes, it is. Keep that in mind. When I say that this one is aggressive, I mean that it is a very aggressive spreader. But if you can put it somewhere where you could mow down anything that like kind of grows out of where you want it to be, so like next to a grassy area to control its spread, or you can put it somewhere that has like hardscape surfaces around it, that will definitely help you maintain it without losing your mind. All right, next up we have what is probably one of my favorite native pollinator plants. And if I could recommend that you put one plant into your yard, one native plant with the widest benefit, it would be this one. And that's goldenrod, with so many caveats, like all of these plants. Goldenrod is a prolific spreader, both underground through rhizomes and by self-seeding. This right here is all goldenrod, and this started last year as a plant maybe like in like a 4-inch pot. I got a teeny tiny, very sad looking goldenrod, threw it in the ground here. I did not deadhead it last year. I let all of the seeds fall and I let it spread on its own, and it is huge and lush. And it looks fantastic right here behind our pond, and I'm probably gonna let it spread a little bit more because it just looks so good back here. But I don't want it to spread any more than probably like another year. So I'll have to start digging it up to contain its spread and definitely start deadheading it at the end of the season so that those seeds don't scatter and root for next year. Another reason goldenrod is a really great native plant to add to your garden is because it is a super late bloomer. So I love how after everything is kind of dying off from the season, especially flowers, but even like green foliage of things, after everything is dying off, goldenrod is throwing up the most gorgeous, like fireworks looking displays of bright yellow flowers. So it provides really great late season support for late season pollinators when there aren't as many food sources. So I'm telling you all of these great things about goldenrod in a video about plants that you might want to think twice about putting in your yard, which doesn't really make sense, but I want you guys to understand that there are a lot of pros and cons when you are deciding what to put in your garden, especially if something is an aggressive spreader. That said, if you are not willing to commit to like making sure you deadhead your goldenrod every year and digging it up to contain its spread, you could opt for something that is a cultivar of the straight species goldenrod. So a straight species plant is what I have up by the pond, and I also have it in our front yard. That is like the type of goldenrod that you will find like out in nature, out in our environment. Cultivars, or sometimes also called nativars, are derived from that straight species plant, and they are oftentimes better options for smaller spaces. This pretty little plant right here is a cultivar of goldenrod that has definitely not spread as prolifically as the straight species goldenrod. This one also stays a little bit more petite. It blooms and it still gets those really pretty late season yellow flowers, but it stays a little bit more compact even when it's full size. I think this one's called like a zigzag goldenrod or something like that. I got this from our Master Gardener plant sale, and it didn't have the exact name on it. It just said it was some sort of dwarf goldenrod cultivar, and I can definitely say that that is the case. But if you take a look at the leaves, you can see why it may be called some sort of like zigzag goldenrod. But this would be a really good choice for a smaller space where you don't have as much space for like unfettered spread of a plant that might be better in like a giant meadow. And if you want to go a little bit bigger, something like this may be a better option too. So this one, in my experience, gets a little bit bigger than that zigzag goldenrod, but definitely not as tall as the straight species goldenrod. So this one stays, I think this one gets about like this tall, so maybe a couple more inches. I don't have to Chelsea chop this one because it stays a little bit more compact. And then it gets these really nice yellow plumes of flowers late in the season. And this is another one where I'm not really sure what exactly the variety is of this, because I got it just labeled as like dwarf cultivar of goldenrod, and I'm very happy with both of these. So I would recommend, if you really want to add some goldenrod to your yard and you don't want to add the straight species kind, to just look around for some dwarf or more compact cultivar varieties of the straight species goldenrod to add to your space. Okay, next up we've got our Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes. These are a relative of the sunflower, the common sunflower that you're probably familiar with, and they are actually edible. Not the plant itself, but the tubers are edible, and they're often used like a potato would be in recipes. So these can get to like over 8 feet tall, so a lot of people will use them for native or edible privacy hedges, but that is not why I don't recommend them for smaller spaces. The reason why they can be trickier in smaller spaces is because they spread like crazy. I have firsthand experience with this. If you leave the tiniest little piece of root or tuber in the ground, it is going to sprout a new plant. So you can see I have most of my sunchokes here in a super sunny spot, but I have them in large pots. This one is a super deep pot, and this one right here is a little bit more shallow, but it's like probably like about this wide. It's kind of hard to see behind the asparagus and everything. Now, since these do get so tall, I do like to Chelsea chop these. I find that unless you have them like against a fence or something where you can kind of gently secure them, or you have something they can lean against, they are going to get floppier, especially once they get later in the summer and they're starting to bloom. So to Chelsea chop them, I may even Chelsea chop them a couple times, but what I do is just kind of cut the top piece off, and then the plant will start to branch a little bit. So this will slow down its growth a little bit in terms of height, but it's not really going to touch how aggressive it is with its tubers. If I took these plants out, because this is multiple plants, multiple tubers in here, if I took these out now and I tried to dig them out, I would not reuse this soil anywhere in my garden, because chances are there's definitely a little piece left in there. Ask me how I know. This has happened to me before. I was very unwise at one point, and I put sunchokes in one of my raised beds just to overwinter through the winter so that I could move them in the spring, because I didn't have the spot ready for where I wanted to put them. I put them in there very loosely. I thought that I had gotten everything out, and I was digging out tiny little sunchoke plants from that raised bed for several months afterward. I eventually did get them all, but it is a huge pain if you ever want to not have sunchokes where you plant them. So containers are a really great option for sunchokes if you do live in a smaller space and you want the benefits of growing sunchokes without dealing with them spreading everywhere. With that said, I did commit to putting some sunchokes right here along our fence line. You can see that this area is still shaded right now. It is shaded both from the fence and from my neighbor's large lilac bushes that kind of hover over the top of the fence line. But as we get more into peak summer and the sun gets a little bit higher in the air, this area also gets a lot of sun. So I put them here because I figured if it's in a little bit less sun, it will slow down its growth a little bit. And they're just so hardy that I have a hard time finding things that will grow in this area. And I want this to be a productive space, since even though it is narrow, it's pretty long along our driveway pad here. So I'm going to come in and Chelsea chop these, even though they are growing a little bit slower. When you compare these to the ones I have in the container, it is very clear that they're growing a little bit slower. They were all planted around the same time, and I find that even new sunchoke plantings can like catch up to what an established sunchoke plant would be very, very quickly, because they are that aggressive. So sunchokes, love them. Think twice about where you plant them and how you plant them. Okay, and last up on our list, we have milkweed, specifically common milkweed. Now I have a patch of common milkweed right here, and I have a patch right here. This one is supposed to be for full sun, but even in an area that gets a lot of shade, this has spread really prolifically. This started off as one teeny tiny plant that I started from a seed that I got from someone else, cold stratified in the fridge, started in a pot, and then threw in the ground. And you have to be really careful with this one. They call it milkweed for a reason, because it can get a little bit weedy looking. Now, milkweeds are a super important plant for us to have because they are the only food source for monarch caterpillars. So you will see monarchs come in, lay their eggs on their milkweed, they will hatch, and then the caterpillars will go to town eating those leaves. But it spreads very prolifically through long runners under the ground that will sprout up lots of different plants, kind of like the passionflower vine does. They can also get a little bit floppy, so I haven't done it yet, but what I like to do is Chelsea chop the common milkweed as well. So these aren't that tall yet, but they actually are starting to show signs of flowers. I'm not too concerned about that. I'm gonna come in here and probably cut off the top, like maybe foot of each plant, and then that's going to branch and create a wider look on the plant that's going to be less prone to getting super tall and leggy and flopping over. It's a really good idea to plant your milkweed somewhere where when it spreads, it will spread into grass, so that you can just run the lawnmower over top of it if you do have grassy areas to control its spread. I just have this big mulched area here. So occasionally I will just see like a little milkweed plant pop up like right in here. And what I do is I just pluck it up like I did this little one here and throw it on the ground. These are the starts of the flowers, which are really, really beautiful looking when they do bloom. They're really great for pollinators as well, but it's actually the leaves of this plant that the monarch caterpillars love so much. And if you have milkweed, you can definitely find if you've had caterpillars on it, because a lot of times if leaves look like this, like they're all chewed up, like this one back here, a monarch has probably laid its eggs on it and the caterpillars have been eating. For smaller spaces, a really great alternative to common milkweed is either a swamp milkweed or a butterfly weed. And I will throw the actual names of these plants up here because a lot of times you'll see things referred to as a swamp milkweed or a butterfly weed, and they can be different types of plants. They can be non-native varieties. Always make sure to check you have native varieties. If you find a native butterfly weed or swamp milkweed, they stay a little bit more like growing in a bush structure or a shrub structure instead of spreading and looking like a bunch of different individual plants that might be a little bit better in like a big field or a meadow. And in my experience, butterfly weed, which is often the kind with orange flowers, that one's going to stay a little bit smaller and more compact than even a swamp milkweed would. And a swamp milkweed, if you don't chop that back a little bit, kind of in June or July, that can also get like a little bit sprawly and leggy looking, but I never have that issue with our butterfly weed. We have one of our butterfly weeds right here. The flowers haven't opened yet, but you can see just the beginning peaks of orange coming out from these flowers. And monarchs, in my experience, treat these plants just the same, whether it is a native common milkweed or a butterfly weed or a swamp milkweed. They lay their eggs on them at just the same rate as they do the common milkweed. So these are a fantastic option if you have a smaller space but really want to add some sort of milkweed. And honestly, I think the orange flowers are prettier than the pink flowers on the common milkweed because the orange is just so vivid and really gorgeous. And for a couple honorable mentions that didn't really make my top 5, but things you might want to keep an eye out for if you're putting them in the ground. The first one is a Joe Pye weed. I love Joe Pye weed. It's a really great wet garden spot or rain garden, like at the end of a downspout or somewhere that just gets a lot of wetness when it rains and retains a lot of moisture. It can get really, really, really tall and it spreads a lot. So you can get like a dwarf Joe Pye weed. I think mine's called like Mini Joe or something like that. I love Joe Pye weed. It just gets really, really big and kind of weedy looking. Boneset, common boneset, and Queen Anne's lace are also like kind of similar, like roadside, highway, tall, kind of feathery, billowy, but kind of weedy looking plants. They can self-seed in your garden prolifically. So you may want to plant those wisely in terms of like giving them a lot of space both to grow and also an area where you will remember to deadhead them at the end of the flowering season before those seeds scatter. Columbine is another one that's like that too. I love columbine, but if you do not deadhead those flowers, they are gonna start popping up everywhere in your garden. I think Mr. Butters heard me out here. Oh, don't show him your butthole, buddy. Show me a pretty, pretty face. Look at that pretty boy. Look at my pretty boy. Mommy loves you. He loves it when we come out here in the back because his favorite place is either to sleep on the patio or he likes to come out here and sleep under the giant rhubarb where he has nice shade and he's hidden. And then last honorable mention is an obedient plant, which I actually just planted right behind me back here. So we'll see if I regret planting that one. I got that at our Master Gardener plant sale this year, and I've heard 2 reasons why this plant is called obedient plant as the common name. The first is that it's kind of a play on the fact that it is not obedient at all, like it spreads everywhere. But the second is I've heard that when it flowers, you can kind of like move the stems and the flower spikes and they will like stay in the position that you move them in. So this is a newer plant to me. I can't speak exactly to how aggressive it is, but I have heard and read that it is pretty aggressive. So I have it back here. I've given it a lot of space. I will keep an eye on it to see how it grows over the next year or so and keep you guys posted. Did this cat really just go behind me during this video in the camera and just start cleaning his butthole? Because that's what cats do, right? Buddy, you could have picked anywhere in the yard. And just to re-emphasize, none of these are bad plants. They are all amazing plants. It's just about matching the plant with the space that you have and making sure that you're researching anything you're putting into the ground. But with native plants, you know you're gonna get that value with them, but you need to make sure that it fits your space and your time and the effort and energy that you are willing to put into containing the plant spread and doing any maintenance you need to do on it. I highly encourage native plants just for all of their obvious benefits, but the one that I think is often overlooked when people talk about native plants is that they don't really need water. Like they need water the first year you put them in while they're getting established, and then after that, they just kind of take care of themselves. Like you may have to do some Chelsea chopping to trim them down. You may have to dig them up and divide them like in the spring or the fall to contain their spread, and you may want to deadhead them after they flower. But other than that, they are beautiful and they provide so much value, and you don't really have to do too much to make them beautiful and valuable. So your future self will thank you for researching your native plants before you put them in the ground. And on that note, I am going to finish Chelsea chopping some of my plants. It is now officially June 1st here in Maryland Zone 7A, and it is time to trim down some of those more aggressive plants. So until my next video, happy planting.